Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome, all of you, on this fourth night of Muharram and the fourth night of our series. There is a saying we will sit with tonight. Every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. It sounds simple. It is anything but. Tonight we ask the difference between bearing witness with the tongue and bearing witness with the whole of one's life. Make yourselves at home, and if you're joining the premiere tonight, a quiet like early on helps these nights reach more people, a small act of sharing. Let us begin. Bismillah. We open with the Quran. Please give your attention to tonight's verses on the believers who are true to the covenant they made with God. Let us listen.
In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. The believing men and women are friends and protectors of each other. They enjoin the good and forbid the evil. They perform the prayer and pay the alms and obey God and His Messenger. Upon them God shall have mercy. God is Almighty, all-wise. Quran, Surah Al-Tawbah, the chapter of repentance, 9, verse 71. Say, shall we inform you of the greatest losers in respect of their deeds? Those whose efforts have been wasted in this life, while they thought that they were acquiring good by their works. They are those who have denied the signs of their Lord and the meeting with Him, so their deeds have come to nothing. And on the day of resurrection we shall assign no weight to them. Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, the chapter of the cave, 18, verses 103 to 105.
And now our couplets, poetry to draw the night's theme closer to the heart. Let the words rest a moment.
Every day is Ashura, is a cry that echoes poetically, from the pulpit to the eulogies, choking with emotions dramatically. Yet what does the phrase really mean? How do we truly live Ashura every day? Can we come clean? The echo is for the mankind whole, but the emphasis is for scholars more. For they can't claim they don't know. Issue is, as Shariati says, what will they do now that they know? Will they fulfill their vow for the covenant they made, or are they still waiting until one day they fade? Fear, love of comfort, and narrowed moral vision have let down scores in every season. The Ummah rose with the revolution of the Holy Prophet, yet Ali, Hassan, Hussein alone were left as elites filled their pockets. Scholars went silent when the treaty was broken. Jihad became a tool for imperial expansion and governance of justice was forgotten. Imam, we mourned Muslim ibn Aqil and wept for us, and we weep, per tradition, as we continue to await and fuss. Isn't the covenant calling upon us today, in a world full of injustice, as we merely cry?
I now invite our speaker, Shaykh Shabbir Hassanally, for tonight's sermon. Every day is Ashura. On Imam Husayn's sermon at Mina, peace and blessings be upon him and the silence of those who knew the truth, but would not speak it. The sermon will pass directly into the Maqtal. Tonight, the ambassador, the story of Muslim ibn Aqil in Kufa, and will close with the supplication. Let us follow it all the way through. Please welcome Shaykh Shabbir Hassanally.
So I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, maliki yawmiddin, iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een, ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim, ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر الأحد منا لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي ibn al-Husayn وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Peace be upon you, O Aba Abdullah, and upon the souls who have gathered in your courtyard. Upon you, from us all, is the peace of God forever, for as long as we remain and as long as night and day endure. And may God never make this our last pledge to visit you. Peace be upon Husayn, and upon Ali the son of Husayn, and upon the children of Husayn, and upon the companions of Husayn. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we've had 3 nights of foundation. On the first night, we recovered a word. We said, martyr does not mean victim. It means witness. We returned to Abel, peace and blessings be upon him, the first witness, the first refusal. And we read the covenant written in his 2 sentences, where he said, which is from Surah Al-Ma'idah, the chapter of the table spread, 5th chapter of the Quran, verse 28. If you stretch out your hand to kill me, I will not stretch out my hand to kill you. I fear God, the Lord of all creation. I will not stretch out my hand to kill you. I fear God, the Lord of all creation. On the second night, we went deeper, before Abel, before the body, before the first morning of the first world. We stood at the primordial covenant, the moment God asked every soul, am I not your Lord? And every soul, without exception, answered, yes, we bear witness. We trace that covenant through the prophets, from Abel through Noah, Abraham, John the Baptist, Zechariah, Jesus, and from the family of the Prophet Hamza, and of course Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, his family and righteous companions. And we saw that Karbala did not begin at Karbala. The chain of witnesses is older than Islam. It is older than the prophets. It is older than the children of Adam. On the third night, Shaheed Ayatollah Murtada Mutahhari, may God rest his pure soul, gave us the theology. 5 kinds of death, and only one of them is not death at all. Natural death, the life that runs its course. Accidental death, the life cut short by a calamity. Criminal death, the life that's taken unjustly. Self-murder, the life that is thrown away. And then 5th, martyrdom, the life given, consciously, wakefully, with awareness for a sacred cause. We said Imam Husayn is not in the 3rd category. He is in the 5th category. And between the two, between having something taken from you and giving something away, is everything. So tonight, a shift. Tonight we hear the voice of Imam al-Husayn himself. Not yet on the plain, not yet under the swords. Before all of that, before the caravan, before the road, before even his departure from Mecca, Imam al-Husayn stood at Mina during the Hajj and delivered a sermon to the scholars and the elites of the Islamic world. He looked at the men who held the knowledge, who carried the respect, who walked with the bearing of kings in the cities of the Muslims, and he told them with the precision of a surgeon and the grief of a grandson exactly what had gone wrong. And what had gone wrong was not that they did not know the truth. What had gone wrong was that they knew it and they said nothing. This is, of course, the khutbah of Mina, recorded in Tuhaf al-Uqul, the collection of sermons and aphorisms of the Imams, peace and blessings be upon them, by al-Harrani, and expounded upon by Imam al-Khomeini, may God rest his pure soul, in his lectures on Islamic governance. And alongside Imam Husayn's voice tonight, we hear 2 modern voices, 2 scholars who 14 centuries later looked at their own societies and found exactly the same disease the Imam had already diagnosed. Dr. Ali Shariati, may God rest his pure soul, the sociologist, the revolutionary thinker, the man who metaphorically shared cafes with Frantz Fanon in Paris, and who came home to Iran and asked what all of it meant for Imam al-Husayn. And Shaykh Murtada Mutahhari, carrying forward from last night, because these 2 thinkers were colleagues, were contemporaries, and were both ultimately killed for the same cause. Shaykh Mutahhari gives us the theology of what a martyr is. Dr. Shariati gives us the sociology of what a martyr does to the world that survives him. They saw the same illness from 2 angles. Shaykh Mutahhari from the seminary, Dr. Shariati from the lecture hall. Tonight, God willing, we bring them together. The Quran, of course, opens our path tonight with a verse from Surah al-Ahzab. This is the chapter of the Allied Forces or the Confederates, 33rd chapter of the Quran, verse number 23, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Among the believers are men who have been true to their covenant with God. Some of them have fulfilled their vow, and some are still waiting, but they have never changed." We used this verse in the previous session to open the section titled Living Witness. Tonight it returns as the structural verse for this entire session, because everything tonight, from the khutbah of Mina to Dr. Shariati's question, is about the relationship between those who have fulfilled the vow and those who are still waiting. The verse holds both halves of this equation in a single breath, the ones who gave and the ones who have not yet changed. And the question this session puts to us is the question Dr. Shariati made very famous, but which Imam Husayn asked first. Now that you know, what will you do? Please give me a loud salawat, and we proceed to Imam Husayn's diagnosis, the khutbah of Mina, and the three silences. 60 years have passed since the migration of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, his family and righteous companions. Everything the revolution built has been hijacked. The companions of the first generation, the ones who fought at Badr, at Uhud, at Khandaq, either they've been killed, exiled, bought, or silenced. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, has been murdered. Imam Hassan too has been poisoned. The Umayyad court has weaponized the vocabulary of the faith itself. The Quran is upon their spears. The pulpits are in their pockets. The word jihad has become a tool for their wars of expansion. And the religious authorities have been conscripted into a theology of fatalism that tells the people, whatever happens is the will of God. You cannot protest. You cannot resist. You can only endure. And before any modern thinker tried to explain what went wrong, before Dr. Shariati, before Shahid Mutahari, before any lecture hall or revolutionary pamphlet, Imam al-Husayn himself stood at Mina and gave the diagnosis. Mecca was full of pilgrims. They had come from all across the Islamic world for the Hajj. And there at Mina, Imam al-Husayn turned to the scholars and the elites and spoke directly to them. Not in private, but in public, to the men who held the knowledge, to the men the people looked up to the men who carried the respect of the community and walked with the bearing of kings. He began by reciting 3 Quranic verses, and listen to the choice of verses, because the choice itself is the argument. The first, Surah Al-Ma'idah, the chapter of the table spread, 5th chapter of the Quran, verse number 63, where God rebukes the rabbis for failing to forbid sinful speech and the consumption of what is unlawful, where Allah says, why do the scholars and the rabbis not forbid their sinful talk and consumption of what is unlawful? Truly, what they have done is evil. The second, again from Surah Al-Ma'idah, the chapter of the table spread, but this time verses 78 to 79, regarding those among the children of Israel who were cursed by the tongues of David and Jesus, the son of Mary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, cursed by the tongue of David and Jesus, the son of Mary, are those among the children of Israel who disbelieved on account of their rebellion and transgression. They did not prevent each other from committing vile and corrupt acts. What they did was abominable. And the third verse from Surah At-Tawbah, the chapter of the repentance, 9th chapter of the Quran, verse number 71, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the believing men and women are friends and protectors of each other. They enjoin the good and forbid the evil. They perform the prayer and pay the alms and obey God and his messenger. Upon them God shall have mercy. God is almighty, all-wise. 3 verses, all about the same thing, the duty to speak when the truth is being violated, and all directed at the same category of people, not the ordinary believer, but the scholars, the leaders, the ones who carry knowledge and therefore carry responsibility. Then Imam al-Husayn turned the Quran toward the men of standing in front of him. You have earned the respect of the people, he told the scholars, because they expect you to uphold the laws of God. They honor you on account of your learning. They seek your intercession. You walk in the streets with the majesty of kings and princes. But you have neglected the rights of the oppressed and the lowly. You have pursued your own interests. You have not spent your wealth or risked your lives for the sake of the one who gave you life. And then comes the core diagnosis, a sentence that should be written on the wall of every seminary, every pulpit, every Husayniyya, every community center, every institution that claims to serve God. Imam Husayn said to the scholars, "You see the covenant enacted with God being violated and trampled underfoot, yet you show no anxiety. When it comes to the covenants enacted with your own fathers, you become greatly disturbed and anxious if they are only violated in part. But the pledges you have given to the most noble messenger are a matter of complete indifference to you." The reference, of course, is all in the write-up. Reflect on the architecture of this rebuke. Imam Husayn is not accusing the scholars of being ignorant. He is accusing them of something far, far worse. They know what is right. They know the covenant is being violated. But they care more about their own family's honor than about the honor of God. When their personal interests are threatened, they are fierce. When God's covenant is being trampled over, they are indifferent. They have privatized their conscience. They have made religion a personal affair, something that protects their family name, their inheritance, their tribal standing, while the public covenant, the covenant with God and with the messenger, is left to die in the streets. And then comes the sentence that seals this diagnosis. Imam Husayn says, "You purchase your safety from the oppressive ruling powers with flattery, cajolery, and compromise." This is not ignorance. This is not even cowardice on its own. This is a transaction. The scholars and the elites have made a deal. They have exchanged their silence for their comfort. They have sold the covenant for a quiet life. Now, the Khutbah of Mina, together with Imam Khomeini's exposition of it in his lectures on governance, on Islamic governance, gives us three core reasons for the scholars' silence. Three reasons that applied when Muawiyah tore up the treaty with Imam al-Hassan, and three reasons that applied in the year 60 after Hijrah, and three reasons that apply in our communities in 2026. The first reason is fear. Imam Husayn says in the khutbah that what enabled the oppressors to gain control of government was the scholars fleeing from death and the scholars' attachment to this life. Imam Husayn said, "You're fleeing in panic from death and your attachment to the transitory life of this world." This is the oldest and most human reason for silence. If I speak, I will suffer. If I object, I will lose my position, my income, my safety, my life. In the 7th century, this was fear of the sword. Muawiyah's intelligence apparatus, the Umayyad secret police, the real and present danger of assassination or exile for anyone who dared to challenge the state. The scholars knew that Muawiyah had torn up the treaty with Imam al-Hassan. They knew it was a wrong thing. But speaking meant dying or at the very least losing everything. In the modern West, the sword has been replaced by softer instruments, but the structure of the fear is identical. The academic who will not publish findings that contradict the institution that funds his or her research. The imam or scholar who will not address a controversial truth because the board of trustees of a given center controls his contract and his housing and his income. The journalist who self-censors because he or she has watched what happens to careers that cross certain lines. The employee who sees something wrong in the organization and calculates quietly that the mortgage is more important than the principal. The social media user who knows what is true about Gaza, about the genocide, about the complicity of the governments under which they live, and who post nothing, says nothing, because they have seen what happens to the accounts and careers and the social circles of those who do. The fear is not of death, it is of professional death, social death, reputational death. But the silence it produces is the same silence Imam Husayn rebuked in Mina. The structure has not changed in 14 centuries. Only the instruments have. And now the second reason, comfort and co-option. The khutbah is devastating on this point. The scholars, Imam Husayn says, purchase their safety from the oppressive ruling powers with flattery, cajolery, and compromise. Imam Khomeini's exposition makes it sharper still. He analyzes why the rabbis and scholars condemned in the Quranic verses were silent, and he gives two reasons. And of course, the references are all in the write-up. Imam Khomeini says, either they were covetous persons who profited materially from the oppressors, accepting payments to keep quiet, or they were faint-hearted cowards who were afraid of them. Their silence was not reluctant, it was transactional. They had been bought. When Muawiyah tore up the treaty with Imam Hassan, many of the scholars said nothing because they had already been given their price. Land grants, stipends, positions, access to the court, a seat at the table. The cost of speaking was the loss of it all. And so they chose comfort. Not because they believed Muawiyah was right. They knew he was wrong. But they calculated, as every bought man in every century has calculated, that the wrong they were living with was more tolerable than the disruption of naming it. In the modern West, this is the think tank funded by the weapons manufacturer or the Zionist entity that produces research supporting the next intervention or the next genocide. It is the religious leader who softens his message because the donors who fund the community center's expansion prefer a quieter Islam, an Islam of charity galas and interfaith breakfasts, not an Islam that names the oppressor. It is the community organization that will not criticize a government whose grants and charity it depends on, because the grant and charity pays for the youth program, and the youth program is of course important, and the government is powerful, and surely we can do more good from the inside. It is the influencer who will talk about mindfulness and self-care and the 5 pillars, but will never say anything that would cost them their audience. The silence is not fearful, it is comfortable. They have made a deal and they're keeping their end of it. And the tragedy is that they often believe, sincerely believe, that they are doing good. That the charity gala justifies the silence. That the youth program excuses the compromise. That the interfaith breakfast makes up for the truth that was not spoken at the interfaith breakfast. And the Quran has a name for this condition. In Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, the chapter of the cave, 18th chapter of the Quran, verses 103 to 105, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Say, shall we inform you of the greatest losers in respect to their deeds? Those whose efforts have been wasted in this life, while they thought they were acquiring good by their works. They are those who have denied the signs of their Lord and the meeting with Him. So their deeds have come to nothing. And on the day of resurrection, we shall assign no weight to them." The greatest losers are not the ones who did nothing. They are the ones who were busy, sincerely busy, productively busy, doing the wrong thing, and believed with all their hearts that they were doing good. The charity gala, the youth program, the interfaith breakfast. All of it real work, all of it genuinely meant, and all of it in the scales of God, weightless, because the one thing that needed to be said was never said. And the third reason, the narrowing of moral vision. This is Imam Khomeini's most brilliant observation on the khutbah, and it is the reason that requires the most care tonight, because it is the reason that most of us will recognize in ourselves. Imam Khomeini, may God rest his pure soul, observes that the scholars, both in Imam Husayn's time and his own, and indeed in our time, had restricted the duty of enjoining good and forbidding evil to trivial, personal, ritualistic matters. Imam Khomeini writes, and the references are all in the write-up, "We have restricted enjoining the good and forbidding the evil to a narrow category of trivial individual affairs. We have the idea firmly in our heads that the instances of evil we are called upon to combat are only the things we encounter in everyday life. For example, if someone plays music on the bus, or the owner of a coffee house does something wrong, or someone eats in the middle of the bazaar during the month of Ramadan, we regard all these things as instances of evil we must denounce. Meanwhile, we remain totally oblivious to far greater evils. Someone plays music on the bus. Someone eats publicly during the month of Ramadan. Someone's dress code does not quite meet the standard. These are the evils the scholars could see and were willing to address. Small, personal, safe targets. The kind of correction that costs nothing and offends no one powerful. Meanwhile, the structural, systemic, civilizational evils went completely unaddressed. The theft of public wealth, the corruption of governance, the oppression of entire populations, the propaganda that rewrites the truth, the complicity of entire nations in the bombing of hospitals and the starvation of children. Not because the scholars did not know about these things, but because addressing them would have required the courage that the first two reasons had already eroded. Fear had made them cautious. Comfort had made them compliant. And the narrowing of moral vision was the final stage. The stage where the cautious, compliant man convinces himself that his duty really is as small as he has made it. Imam Khomeini puts it with a precision that cuts across the centuries. He says, "The range of thought in some people is confined to the mosque we are now sitting in and is incapable of extending any further. When they hear the expression, consumption of what is forbidden, they can only think of some corner grocer who is, God forbid, selling his customers short. They never think of the whole range of more important forms of consuming what is forbidden, of the plunder of entire nations' wealth. They can see the small wrong in front of them. They cannot see, or will not see, the enormous wrong all around them." In the modern West, this is the community that will argue passionately about the permissibility of a wedding DJ, but will say nothing, absolutely nothing, about a genocide being broadcast live on their phones. It is the community leader who can issue a 20-page ruling on the correct method of slaughtering an animal or wearing the hijab, but cannot find a single paragraph about the slaughter of human beings being carried out with the weapons, the money, and the diplomatic cover of the government whose passport he carries. It is the narrowing of moral imagination to the personal and the ritual, while the political and structural go entirely unaddressed, not because they do not matter, but because addressing them would require the kind of courage that the community stopped cultivating the moment it chose comfort over covenant. These three, fear, comfort, and the narrowing of moral vision, are the reasons the scholars were silent when the treaty with Imam al-Hassan was broken. They are the reason the elite stood by as the Umayyad court hijacked the vocabulary of faith, turning jihad into a tool for imperial expansion, and replaced the governance of justice with the governance of the tribe. And they are the reasons Imam al-Husayn stood at Mina and wept, not for himself, but for a community that had the knowledge, but not the will to act on it. Imam Husayn named the disease. 14 centuries later, a young sociologist in Tehran and Paris would ask the same question the scholars at Mina had already dodged. What should be done? And this is where Dr. Ali Shariati, may God rest his soul, enters, because 14 centuries later, in Martyrdom, Arise and Bear Witness, Dr. Shariati looks at his own society, Iran under the Shah, and he found exactly the same disease Imam Husayn had already diagnosed. the same fear, the same co-option, the same narrow moral vision. And he framed it as a single devastating question. The question that haunted every aware Muslim in the year 60 after the Hijrah. What should be done? And everyone had an answer. Dr. Ali Shariati catalogues them, and here tonight we must listen carefully because these answers have not gone away. They are given in our century too, in our cities, in our own community centers, every single day. You have the fatalists, and the fatalists say, nothing, whatever has occurred, will continue to occur in accordance with divine wisdom. God wishes it to be this way. You must be satisfied with what has been given to you. This is the cancer of a misused theology of divine decree. A theology that takes real Quranic concepts like tawakkul, reliance on God, and qadar, the measure or the will of God, and twists them into a permission slip for doing nothing. It is the theology of every person who has ever watched injustice and said, it's not for me to judge. The second is the pious retreaters. The pious retreaters say, withdraw, pray, fast, seek nearness to God through worship. Paradise has 8 doors, jihad is only 1 key, and it is the hardest. Why not use a safer key? Dr. Shariati names this with a surgeon's precision. It is the path of Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of the second Caliph, a man of great personal piety, who refused to join any side in the civil wars, who prayed while others bled, and who died comfortable and old while the grandchildren of the Prophet were being killed. He was, by every outward measure, a devout man, and by the measure of the covenant, he was the third silence made flesh. Then you have the pragmatists, and the pragmatists say, adapt, the Umayyad state is expanding Islam's borders, mosques are being built, the call to prayer is heard in new cities, join the system, work from within, reform what you can. This is the voice of every generation's reasonable collaborator. The one who can always find a reason to make peace with power. The one who says, yeah, sure, it's imperfect, but look at the alternative. The one who confuses the expansion of the brand with the preservation of the truth. And then you have the intellectualists. And the intellectualists say, study, build schools of thought, preserve the tradition in books. This is not the time for confrontation. It is the time for scholarship. Dr. Shariati acknowledges that this, in Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq's time, peace and blessings be upon him, became the right strategy. The Imam himself turned the seminary into a battlefield, as we've discussed in our Imamah sessions, because the moment demanded it. But for Imam al-Husayn, 60 years after the Prophet, it is not yet time for that. The memory of Islam is still close enough to be rekindled by action. And the ones calling for scholarship over confrontation are, in many cases, simply dressing the pragmatist bargain in the scholar's robes. And then you have the one man who says yes. The lonely man who says yes. Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, says yes. Not because he has an army, not because he has a plan for victory, not because the odds are in his favor. This is not the third death. This is the fifth. A life given wakefully with awareness. Dr. Shariati insists on this point with everything that he has. He says, Imam Husayn's responsibility came from his awareness, not from his ability. He's the most aware man alive. He's the grandson of the Prophet. He carries the covenant in his blood. And because he is aware, because he knows what the truth is and knows what the lie is, he is responsible. And responsibility that comes from awareness cannot be deferred to a more convenient season. He has already told the scholars at Mina what they needed to do. He had cited the verses. He had named the disease. He had given the prescription. Do not submit to oppression. Such submission is worse than oppression itself. And they had done it, and they had not done it. They had listened. They had politely nodded. And they had gone home and continued to purchase their safety with flattery, cajolery, and compromise. And so he walked. He walked out of Medina. He walked out of Mecca, foregoing the Hajj itself, because the regime had sent soldiers disguised as pilgrims to assassinate him in the sacred precincts, and he would not allow the sanctity of the house of God to be violated by the spilling of his blood within it. He walked towards Kufa, openly, publicly, with his family and his household, because the man who knows cannot pretend not to know. This is the first lesson of tonight. The duty to bear witness does not wait for favorable conditions. The scholars at Mina had favorable conditions. They had the knowledge, they had the respect, they had the numbers, and they said nothing. Imam Husayn had none of these things. No army, no allies, no assurance of anything but the road ahead and God above it. And he said yes. Please give me a loud salawat. We move to the next point, which is the Shahada of the tongue and the Shahada of the life.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
And now we come to the heart of tonight, the distinction that this entire series is built around, named at last in its clearest form. In Arabic, Shahada means both testimony and witness. Every Muslim begins their faith with a Shahada of the tongue. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger. That declaration is the door. You say it and you enter. But Imam Husayn's entire movement, his entire life, is the demonstration that the door is not the house. Entering is not inhabiting. Declaring is not being. There are two kinds of Shahada. So first, let's look at the Shahada of the tongue. The Shahada of the tongue is the declaration, or is the faith of declaration. It says the words. It attends the gatherings. It wears the right symbols. It recites the right phrases at the right moments. It mourns beautifully. It identifies proudly, loudly, sincerely with the tradition. It will tell you, if asked, that it loves Imam al-Husayn, that it weeps for Imam al-Husayn, that it will never forget Imam al-Husayn. But when the tradition makes a demand that would cost something, when the yes that Imam Husayn said requires a yes from the one who claims to follow him, the Shahada of the tongue falls silent. Because identification by itself carries no cost. You can identify with Imam Husayn without ever making a single choice that Imam Husayn would recognize. And then you have the Shahada of life. The Shahada of life is the faith of commitment. It is what Imam Husayn demonstrated. It is what he asked for at Mina. It is what the scholars at Mina had the knowledge to give and refused to give for fear of comfort and the narrowing, for fear, comfort and the narrowing of their moral vision. The Shahada of the life does not require death. It requires cost. It requires that when the moment comes, the moment when truth is on one side and the comfortable lie is upon the other, you choose the truth, even when it would be easier and safer and indeed more profitable to say nothing. Dr. Shariati, in his famous distinction between the Shiism of Imam Ali and the Shiism of the Safawids, was getting at exactly this in the language of his time and audience. When a dynasty in the 16th century Iran adopted Shiism as a state religion, it kept the mourning, but it removed the commitment. The tears remained, but the demand was drained. Karbala became something to remember rather than something to continue. The people wept every Muharram and then went home and lived as though Imam Husayn had never asked them anything. The Shahada of the tongue without the Shahada of life. But this is not a disease confined to one dynasty or one century. It is available wherever the faith becomes a culture rather than a covenant. Wherever the identity replaces the commitment. Wherever the label, I am a Muslim, I am a Shia, I am a follower of Imam Husayn, is spoken with the tongue, but not written with the life. And here we must tread carefully. Because Dr. Shariati wrote as a polemicist, and we speak as a pulpit. His critique, and ours tonight, is not of mourning itself. Our tradition holds, and the martyr Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may God rest his pure soul, emphasized throughout his leadership that the tears for Imam Husayn are themselves an act of worship. The hadith on this is very clear. The practice of the Imams, peace and blessings be upon them, is clear. The scholars are unanimous. Weeping for Imam al-Husayn is good. It is endorsed by the Prophet. It is endorsed by the Prophet himself. He wept for Imam Husayn before Imam Husayn was even born, as we traced on night 2. What we're warning against tonight is mourning that ends with the tears. Mourning that becomes its own purpose. Mourning that produces a community that can cry beautifully for 10 nights in Muharram and then spend the 11 other months of the year in exactly the state of fatalism and pragmatism that the four voices of nothing offered to Imam Husayn. Shaykh Mutahhari told us last night in words that we must hear again tonight. He said, and the reference of course are all in the write-up, Islam, despite not having shown much enthusiasm over weeping for an ordinary deceased person, desires that people weep for the martyr, because the martyr has created an epic, and weeping for the martyr means participating in his epic, harmonizing with his spirit, affirming his zeal, and moving with the wave he has set in motion. Think about that last phrase, moving with the wave he has set in motion. The tears are not the end. They are the entry into the wave. They are what carries you forward into the epic the martyr created, into the demand the witness left behind. But if the tears stop at the door, if the mourning never becomes movement, then we have wept without entering the wave. And a wave that no one enters breaks onto an empty shore. And here we bring together the two modern voices of tonight, because they were seeing the same disease from two different positions. And together they give us a clarity that neither of them provide alone. Shaykh Mutahhari's critique from last night is theological. The preacher who tells the story of Karbala as though Imam Husayn lost his life in vain, who reduces the master of martyrs to a victim, who centers the suffering and removes the agency. The preacher is draining the witness of its power. He's turning category 5 into category 3. He's turning the gift into a theft. Dr. Shariati's critique is sociological. The community that mourns Imam Husayn without being changed by that mourning, that weeps in Muharram and then lives the rest of the year as though the weeping carried no obligation, that community is performing the Shahada of the tongue while abandoning the Shahada of the life. They have made Karbala a seasonal event rather than a permanent covenant. The preacher who turns Imam Husayn into a victim is doing in the sermon what the domesticated tradition does in the culture, draining the witness of its demand. Shaykh Mutahhari names it in the theology, Dr. Shariati names it in the sociology. And behind both of them, standing at Mina, Imam Husayn had already named it in the Quran, 14 centuries before either of them was born. They were colleagues, they were contemporaries, and they were both killed for the same cause. Shaykh Mutahhari by an assassin's bullet in Tehran, and Dr. Shariati in exile in England under circumstances that remain disputed, but that the community has never really doubted. 2 candles extinguished, 2 lights that went further than the candles ever imagined. And so the second lesson of tonight, the measure of authentic mourning is not the intensity of the tears, but the depth of the commitment that follows the tears. If we weep for Imam al-Husayn tonight, and we should weep for Imam al-Husayn tonight, then the test of the weeping is what we do tomorrow. Not the grand gestures, not the theatrical sacrifice. What we do at the kitchen table, in the workplace, in the school, in the group chat, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, And the choice is between the comfortable lie and the inconvenient truth. And of course, there is a saying, and the reference for it is in the write-up: every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. And this sentence, which is attributed in various forms to different Imams and carried into the modern world by Dr. Ali Shariati more than anyone else, does not mean that every day is dramatic. It means that every day contains the same choice Imam Husayn faced: say yes or say nothing. Please give me a salawat, and let's then look at every day as Ashura, what it means in 2026. What does it mean? Every day is Ashura, every place is Karbala. For someone sitting in Rochdale, London, Dearborn, Toronto, Sydney, Martinique, anywhere in 2026, what does it mean? It does not mean we romanticize sacrifice. It does not mean we walk around with a martyr complex. It does not mean we compare our inconveniences to the suffering of the household of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon them. It means this: the structure of Imam Husayn's choice is available to every one of us every day. And that structure is simple. There is a truth. There is a falsehood dressed as normality. There is a cost to naming the truth. And there is a voice inside you or around you or both saying, nothing, don't, it's not worth it, adapt, be realistic, be quiet. That structure is Karbala, and it is everywhere. When a teacher in a British school refuses to pass along a curriculum she knows is misleading her students and pays for it with difficulty, she's saying yes in the same structure Imam al-Husayn said yes. She is choosing the Shahada of life. When a doctor will not turn away the patient who cannot pay and absorbs the cost, he is refusing the pragmatist bargain. He is refusing to purchase his comfort at the expense of the covenant. When a mother raises her children with conviction in a culture that rewards assimilation and punishes distinctiveness, this is the Shahada of life. That is the woman who has decided that the identity she gives her children will not be an empty label, but it will be a lived commitment. When a journalist refuses to smooth the copy and files a story that will not sell, this is a small act of Shahada, of bearing witness. It may cost her nothing more than perhaps an argument with the editor, but the shape of the choice is the same. When a young Muslim in a Western university refuses to apologize for their tradition and refuses to be silent about Gaza, and does so without cruelty, without self-righteousness, with the clarity and the sadness and the steel that the tradition has taught them, they are standing where Imam Husayn stood. They are facing the three silences. Fear whispers, comfort beckons, and their moral vision is being narrowed for them by a culture that wants them to care only about their grades and their careers and their personal brand. And the choice they make, to speak or not to speak, to stand or to not stand, is the same choice the scholars at Mina refuse to make. None of these people will necessarily die for it. Most of them will not even be noticed. But the choice has the same shape. And the shape is what matters, because the shape is the covenant. And here we must say something about the universality of this, because the Shahada of the tongue and the Shahada of the life are not categories that belong only to Muslims. They belong to every human being who has ever faced the choice between naming the truth and saying nothing. The covenant at Surah Al-A'raf was made with every soul. We mentioned it previously. This is from Surah Al-A'raf, the chapter of the heights, 7th chapter of the Quran, verse 172, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And when your Lord took from the children of Adam, from their loins, their descendants, and made them bear witness against themselves, am I not your Lord? And they said, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, we bear witness." That covenant was made with every soul. The duty of witness does not begin at the mosque door and end at the mosque gate. It extends to every place where a human being is confronted with a truth that has a cost. We said it on night one that martyr means witness, and the word belongs to Greek before it belongs to Arabic. We will see in later sessions that the chain of witnesses includes people who never said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but God and Muhammad is his messenger. People who bore witness with their lives in languages the Quran was not revealed in, for a truth they recognized by a different name, under a covenant they may not have even known they had signed. The Shahada of life is wider than Islam. It is as wide as the soul. But tonight we speak to ourselves. Tonight we speak to the community that carries the name of Imam Husayn and claims the grief of Karbala. And the question is not whether we weep. We weep. The question is whether the weeping has taught us anything. Whether the Shahada we carry is the Shahada of the tongue or the Shahada of the life. Whether we are the scholars at Mina or the man who spoke to them. And here we return to the verse we opened with tonight. Quran, Surah al-Ahzab, the chapter of the Confederates or the Allied Forces, 33rd chapter of the Quran, verse 23, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, among the believers are men who have been true to their covenant with God. Some of them have fulfilled their vow and some are still waiting, but they have never changed. The ones who fulfilled their vows are the martyrs. The ones who are still waiting is us. And the condition, the one condition that holds the whole verse together, وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. They have never changed. The waiting is not passive. The waiting is a form of readiness. The waiting is the refusal to change, to adapt, to compromise, to say nothing when the truth requires a yes. Imam Husayn diagnosed the disease in Mina. Dr. Shariati catalogued the four voices of nothing. Shaykh Mutahari built the theology of the gift. And all three of them are pointing to the same verse, the same covenant, the same question. Have you changed? Or are you still waiting, still standing, still carrying the yes that the covenant demands? And the call to the congregation tonight is this. Between tonight and tomorrow night, find one place in your life where you've been saying nothing, where you've been choosing the fatalist answer or the pragmatist answer or the retreatist answer, and say yes. Not dramatically, not publicly, not in a way that invites admiration or sympathy. Just once. Just one place where the three silences have held you. Fear, comfort, the narrowing of your vision, and break one of them. See what it costs. See whether the cost is worth it. And now, tonight, we hear what happened when one young man said yes in a city called Kufa. Muslim ibn Aqil, the ambassador, the cousin who carried the covenant into the city of 18,000 promises, and what they did to him. We remember what happens when the yes is carried into a city that has already forgotten its own name. Please give me a loud salawat and we have a segue into the Maqtal.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
I came to you for Abel. I came to you for the inherited tear. I came to you for a doorway. Tonight I come to you for a city. For a city that wrote letters, hundreds of them, bags of them, caravans of them, riding out of Kufa toward Mecca, with the dust of the road on their seals and the ink still wet on their promises. Come to us, the letters said. We have no imam, we have no guide. Come to us, O son of the messenger. Come to us, and we will stand beside you. Come, and we will not let you down. My brothers, my sisters, There is a city in every century that writes letters like those, that pledges in the summer what it will deny in the autumn, that signs its name with conviction and erases it with fear. I was not there, but I remember the letters. I remember every one of them. My forefather Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, read the letters. Bag after bag, messenger after messenger. 18,000 names in some of the narrations, 18,000 hands reaching toward Mecca. He did not go himself, not yet. He sent a man, his cousin. Muslim, the son of Aqil, peace and blessings be upon him. The nephew of my forefather Ali, a quiet man, not a general, not a politician, an ambassador. He sent him with a letter of his own, and the letter said, "Go to Kufa, see the people, take their pledge, and if their word is their word, send me word and I will come." Muslim took the letter. He kissed the hand of my forefather and he rode. He came into Kufa, and he was given shelter in the house of a man named Maqtal, and the people of the city came to him there. They came in their hundreds and then in their thousands. The houses opened, the hands opened, the mouths opened with pledges, and the pledges were warm and the pledges were many. 18,000 men placed their hands in the hand of Muslim and said, "We pledge our loyalty to the grandson of the messenger. Tell Husayn to come. We are ready. We will not let him down." And Muslim believed them. Not because he was a fool, but because what man, standing in a city of open doors with 18,000 hands in his, would believe otherwise? He wrote to my forefather, "Come, the people are with you, come." Then word rode in from the north. A new governor was coming to Kufa. His name was Ubaidullah, the son of Ziyad. But hear how he came. He did not come openly. He did not ride in beneath his own banner. He came veiled, his face covered against the dust, and over his shoulders the green of the household of the messenger. And the people of Kufa, who were watching every road for the grandson of their prophet, saw a rider coming green with his face wrapped. And they ran to him. They ran to him and they took his hand and they kissed it and they wept and they cried out, "Welcome, O son of the messenger, welcome. We have waited for you." And the man behind the veil said nothing. He let them weep and he watched. He watched a whole city pour out its love at his feet, love that was not for him. And he learned in that 1 hour on the road exactly how much Kufa loved Husayn. And a man who knows exactly how much a city loves knows exactly where to set the knife. He uncovered his face inside the palace. There was an old governor in Kufa then, Numan, the son of Bashir. An old man and a weak man, but a believing man who had not wished to spill blood. Ubaidullah set him aside as easily as setting down a cup, and he took the city. And the fear came. It came so fast that of the 18,000, 8,000 fell silent. Before Ubaidullah had drawn a single sword, 8,000 pledges undone by the sight of a ruse on a road. And Muslim, peace and blessings be upon him, left the house of Maqtal, for the weather had changed, and an open house was no longer a safe house, and went to the house of Hani, the son of Urwa. Hani, the son of Urwa, peace and blessings be upon him. An old man, an honored man, the chief of the tribe of Madhij, one of the great tribes of Kufa. And his house was a strong house because his tribe was a strong tribe. This is why Muslim went to him. And this is why Ubaydullah could not simply send soldiers to Hani's door. Because if the governor's men forced the door of the chief of Madhij, the tribe of Madhij would come into the streets with their swords. And not even a governor wants a tribe at war with him inside his own city. So Ubaydullah could not take Muslim by force. He would have to take him by cunning. And before the cunning could even begin, he needed one thing. He needed to be certain. He needed proof. Proof that Muslim was sheltering beneath the roof of Hani. Ubaydullah had a man. His name was Aqil. He dressed him as a stranger from the villages, and he filled his hands with silver, and he sent him into Kufa with a story. And the story was love. Aqil went among the believers, the loyal few who had not yet been frightened into silence, and he said, I have come from my village. We have heard the grandson of the messenger is coming. We love him. Take me to his ambassador. We wish to give what little we have. And the believers, who had no reason on earth to doubt a man whose eyes were wet for Husayn, took him by the hand through the streets to a house and into the room where Muslims sat. And Aqil placed in Muslim's hands a purse, 3,000 dirhams, exactly 3,000. And Muslim, peace and blessings be upon him, looked at the purse and he asked a quiet question. Why is the sum so exact? Who sat and counted this? And the spy's heart stopped, for a spy's story must have an answer for every question. And Aqil thought fast and he said, the village gathered 2,743, the rest I added myself, from the money I had been saving to make the pilgrimage. And Muslim believed him. Why would he not? It was a small, exact, humble lie with a pilgrimage folded inside it. And Aqil walked out of that house carrying the one thing he had been sent to carry. He now knew that Muslim was in the house of Hani. He went to the palace and he told Ubaydullah. Now Ubaydullah had his proof, and now the cunning began. I will visit Hani, he said. He is unwell, I will go to him as a friend. Hani sent word that he was too sick to receive anyone. Ubaydullah insisted, and Hani, cornered, agreed. And then Hani turned to Muslim, and Hani said, this is the hour. He will come into this house, he will come into this room, he will be a guest, and he will be unarmed, and he will sit at the side of a sick man's bed, hide in the side room. When I call for water, that is the sign. Come out behind him and end the danger to Husayn before it has begun. And Muslim agreed. The danger was real, the man was Ubaydullah. It seemed the only way. The hour came. Hani lay in the bed, his sickness real and the stillness of it a performance. Muslim stood in the dark of the side room, his hand on his sword. And while the voice of the governor filled the house, Muslim, the son of Aqil, peace and blessings be upon him, began, in that small dark room, to think. He thought, this man is a guest. He has come unarmed to the bedside of a sick man. and I am to come out of the dark behind his back and strike him down before he can turn. He thought, this is not the way of my uncle, the messenger of God. This is not the way of Ali. This is not the way of my master, Husayn. And then, my beloved in that room, Muslim remembered Abel. I brought you to Abel on the first of these nights, the first witness. And you remember what Abel said to the brother who raised a hand against him. If you reach out your hand to kill me, I will not reach out my hand to kill you. Abel would not let the first murder of the world begin with his hand. In a side room in Kufa 14 centuries later, the cousin of my forefather remembered the first of the witnesses, and honey called out for water, the sign, and Muslim did not move. He did not come out of the dark, he did not raise his hand. He let the sign pass into silence. And the governor lived. And the one chance, the only chance some would always say was gone. And Muslim went down onto the floor of that side room into prostration. And he wept, and he thanked his Lord. He thanked him that his hand had been held, that he had not carried the covenant of Husayn into a room and walked it back out as the covenant of an assassin. Hear me, and hear me carefully. The witness will defend himself. Before this night is over, you will see Muslim fight like a lion. But the witness will not become the hidden hand in the dark. He will not strike the guest. He will not let the faith of Husayn be the thing that kills first and kills by stealth. That is the whole of the faith. That is the line between the Shahada and its counterfeit. Then Muslim, on the floor of a side room, with the sign still hanging in the air, chose the Shahada. Ubaidullah left that house alive and uneasy. He had felt something in those walls, he could not prove it. But he wanted honey out of that house now, away from the tribe that would gather around him. So he came back, not as an enemy, as a friend. You are unwell, honey. The physicians of the palace are the finest in Kufa. Come, let me care for you. Honey knew his household knew they protested. But a governor who insists with a smile is not refused twice. They took Hani, the son of Urwa, peace and blessings be upon him, to the palace. Gently, with no chains, with the soft words of a friend, and the gates closed behind him. And he was not seen again. A day, 2 days, his household sent for word and received none. And the tribe of Madhij is not a tribe that loses its chief in silence. The men came. They came to the palace with their swords in their hands, and they stood beneath the walls, and they said, "Bring out Hani, or we will bring him out ourselves." And Ubaidullah, inside those walls, was afraid, for a tribe at the gate is a thing that even a governor fears. So he reached for the cheapest weapon he owned. He sent for the judge. There was a judge in Kufa. His name was Shurayh. He was the man the whole city trusted, the one whose words settled the quarrels of the believers, the one the people believed. And he was also a man who could be moved not by argument, but by silver and by the fear of losing his place. They took Shurayh in to see Hani, and Shurayh saw him. Shurayh saw a man in a dungeon, beaten, his face broken. And Hani called out to the judge, Tell my people what your eyes have seen." And Shurayh came out, onto the high balcony above the swords of Madhij. And the judge that all of Kufa trusted lifted his voice over the crowd and said, "I have seen Hani. He is alive, he is well, he is being cared for. Go home, and they went home. The word of one trusted man, spoken from a high place, turned an armed tribe around and sent it back to its houses and left its own chief in the dark. And in that dark, Ubaydullah did what he had always meant to do. Hani, the son of Urwa, peace and blessings be upon him, the man who would not surrender his guest, was killed for keeping a door shut. The first of the witnesses of this epic, before Karbala, before the plain, before the tents, before the river, the chief of Madij, killed in a cell because a judge lied from a balcony, and a city believed him. Word reached Muslim. Hani is taken, Hani is dead. And Muslim rose. He could wait no longer. He called Kufa to rise with him. And Kufa came at first. They came in their thousands, and he turned toward the palace at the head of them. But the men of Ubaydullah moved through that crowd the way fear moves through a crowd. A whisper at this man's ear, a threat in that man's hearing. A father quietly told what would become of his sons, and the thousands began to thin. Muslim went into the mosque of Kufa to pray. The mosque was full behind him, hundreds, perhaps 1,000. He stood to lead them in the Maghrib prayer, the prayer of the setting sun, and he prayed it as the last light went out of the sky. And when he had finished, and he turned to face the people he had been praying before, there were perhaps 100, perhaps fewer. The rest had risen up from the prayer in the dark and walked out. And Muslim walked out after them. Out of the mosque of Kufa, the same mosque where my forefather Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, had been struck down at his own prayer. And as he walked, even the 100 melted away into 50, into 10, into none. Within the space of minutes, the ambassador of the grandson of the messenger of God was alone, in the dark, in a city he did not know, knocking on doors that would not open. There was a house at the far edge of Kufa, and Muslim, with nowhere left in all the city, sat down in the dark beside its wall, and a woman came out. Her name was Toa. She was a believing woman. He asked her only for water. She brought it. And as he drank, she looked at him, and she asked him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am Muslim." And she understood. You are the ambassador of my master Husayn." And she asked him what he was doing, sitting in the open street of Kufa in the dark of the night. Do you not know what they say of this city? That Kufa kills its strangers. You cannot sit here in the open. And Muslim smiled, a tired, sad smile, and he said, "I have nowhere. The people have abandoned me. Give me shelter for one night, only one. And at the first light I will go, because my master Husayn must be told the truth of this city, that its pledge was a pledge of the tongue and the tongue alone." And Taha was afraid. She had a son. His name was Bilal, a young man who loved money, who gambled it and chased it. And Taha knew that the governor had set a price on the head of Muslim. But Taha knew her duty better than she knew her fear. She looked into her son's room. He was asleep. And she brought Muslim quietly into her house and gave him a place in the basement to pray and to rest. She did not know that her son was not asleep, that Bilal had watched his mother through half-closed eyes. had seen everything. Toa rose for the dawn prayer, and her son was gone. Bilal, who never rose before midday, was gone before the Fajr. He had waited for his mother to sleep, and then he had walked through the dark to the palace of Ubaydullah, and he had sold the ambassador of Husayn for the promise of gold. I know where Muslim is. He is in my mother's house in the basement. And Muslim, at his prayer in that basement, heard his hostess say that her son had risen and gone out before the dawn, and Muslim knew. He knew exactly what it meant. He did not run. There was nowhere to run. He put on his helmet, he took up his sword, and he asked Toa for her forgiveness, for the harm that was about to come to her house because she had been kind to a stranger. They came after the dawn prayer, the men of Ubaydullah. They called over the wall, "Come out, Muslim, come out, and you will be safe, only come out." And Muslim said, "I will not come to you willingly." So they climbed the walls, they threw fire down into the courtyard, they threw stones. They came down into that narrow space with their blades. And Muslim, the son of Aqil, the nephew of Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, fought them the way the blood of Ali fights. He fought like a lion in a small courtyard. But a lion against 100 is still one man against 100. And in the end they took him, wounded, ringed, overcome, and they dragged him through the streets to the palace. They brought him before Ubaydullah, and Ubaydullah asked him, almost lightly, whether he had any last words before he was put to death. And Muslim, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Yes, 2 things. I am thirsty, I would like water, and I would like to entrust my will to one of these men." And Ubaydullah told his guards to fetch the vessel that the dogs and the animals were watered from, and to give Muslim his water in that. And he told Umar, the son of Sa'ad, to step forward and take the will of the dying man. Umar was reluctant. Ubaydullah pressed him. "It is a trust between you and him. To betray a man's last will is a dishonor even you would not carry." And Muslim said to Umar, "I have debts in the city. Sell my armor and my sword and discharge them, and send word to my master Husayn, tell him not to come to Kufa." Then the guard brought the vessel of water, and as Muslim lifted it to drink, the blood from his wounds fell into the cup, and blood in a small vessel makes the water unfit to drink. And Ubaydullah laughed. He laughed and he said, "Even God will not let you drink. You will die thirsty, Muslim." And Muslim looked at him and he said, "It is no surprise from a man like you to have no honor, to murder your guest and leave him thirsty. This is your nature, Ubaydullah. This is simply what you are." And Ubaydullah's face went dark with it. "I will kill you," he said, "in a way no man has been killed before." And he gave his order. "Take him to the roof of the palace, throw him from the high wall, and when he falls, tie him behind a horse and drag him through every street of Kufa." And Muslim, peace and blessings be upon him, heard the sentence and he smiled, because he knew now that this was the road, and he asked only one thing of his Lord, that his witness be accepted. They took him up to the roof, and Muslim stood at the high wall, and he turned, and he looked out away from Kufa toward the place where he knew his master was, toward Karbala. And he said it once more, to no soldier, to no governor. He said it into the wind, for the wind to carry where no messenger now could go. My master Husayn, do not come here. The people of Kufa are not loyal. The guard checked the binding on his hands. The guard checked the binding on his feet. And Muslim, the son of Aqil, thanked his God for the honor of it. And he was thrown from the wall. He fell. And when he had fallen, the men of Ubaidullah tied his body behind a horse and dragged it through the streets of Kufa. The streets he had walked as a guest, past the doors he had knocked upon, so that the whole city would see, and the whole city would be afraid. But there were two men who were not in Kufa to see it. Two men of the loyal few, not of the household, but faithful. Muslim, the son of al-Sajah, and Habib, the son of Muzahir. They had gone out into the country around Kufa to speak to the tribes, to gather what help could still be gathered. And when they returned and learned that the ambassador was dead, they knew one thing only: that my forefather Husayn had to be reached and warned and stood beside. Every road out of Kufa was watched and closed. So they went out the one way that was left, along the water by a hidden and a dangerous path. And they slipped out of the city of broken promises, and they turned their faces toward Karbala. The news had left Kufa. My brothers, my sisters, Muslim, the son of Aqil, teaches the hardest lessons of this whole session. The first lesson is this: you can say yes, and the world can still say no back to you. You can carry the covenant into a city, and the city can break every promise it ever made. You can knock on 1,000 doors and watch every one of them close. The witness does not guarantee that the city will keep its word. It guarantees only one thing: that the one who carries it has not changed. The 18,000 changed, Muslim did not. That is the Shahada of the tongue and the Shahada of the life. The tongue says the word and takes it back when the word grows expensive. The life holds the covenant until the covenant takes the life. But there is a second lesson, and it is deeper, and I do not want you to leave tonight without it. In a side room in the House of Honey, Muslim was handed away to win one blow, one unguarded back, and the danger to Husayn would have ended that night, and he would not. Not because he could not fight, you saw him fight, but because he would not let the witness become the assassin. He would not let the covenant of Husayn arrive in a room and leave it as a murder. He did, in that side room, what Abel did in that field. He kept his own hand from rising. Hear it clearly. The witness defends. The witness does not betray. The witness will give his life, but he will not take one by stealth, by treachery, behind a guest's turned back. The faith fetters that hand. Muslim could have been the hidden knife. He chose instead to be the lamp. And tonight, on the 4th of Muharram, we send our peace to a young man who walked into a city of broken promises, refused the one shortcut that would have saved him, and carried the covenant, whole and clean, all the way to a rooftop. Peace be upon you, O Muslim, the son of Aqil. Peace and blessings be upon you. The ambassador, the cousin, the nephew of Ali, the first of the caravan to fall. You carried the covenant into Kufa, and you carried it out again unbroken onto a rooftop. You were offered a way to win by treachery, and you chose to lose by faith. And so you did not lose at all. Peace be upon you, O Hani, the son of Urwa. Peace and blessings be upon you. Chief of Madhij, who would not give up your guest, who was taken with the soft words of a friend and killed in the dark because a judge lied above your tribe's heads. You kept the door shut. You paid for it everything a man can pay. Peace be upon you, O Toa. Peace and blessings be upon you, who opened one door in a city of 10,000 closed ones. You were afraid and you sheltered him anyway. The tradition has forgotten the names of the 18,000 who pledged. It has remembered the name of the one woman who kept her word. Peace be upon you, O my forefather Husayn. Peace and blessings be upon him, who would receive the message from the rooftop. Do not come. Kufa is not what it promised to be, and would come anyway. Because the covenant was never with Kufa. The covenant was with God. And that covenant does not change because a city has changed. Peace be upon the commanders of the caravan of our own age, Soleimani, Mughniya, Muhandis, Nasrallah. Peace and blessings be upon them all, who carried the message into cities of broken promises in their own centuries and met the same closed doors and did not turn back. Peace be upon every man and woman who has ever carried the truth into a place that did not want it and stayed, and was broken for staying, and did not change, and did not strike by stealth. And may the distance of God's mercy, the long, eternal, unappealable distance, fall upon you, Baidullah, the son of Ziyad, who watered a thirsty man from the vessel of dogs. Upon Aqil, who folded a lie around a pilgrimage and sold a frightened city's last loyalty for his master's silver. Upon Shurey, the trusted judge, who looked upon a beaten man and lied from a high balcony, who learned that night the price of a tongue that says what power has paid it to say. Upon Bailal, who sold his own mother's guest for the promise of gold. And upon every hand in every century since that has closed the door when the ambassador knocked, or written a letter of welcome in the summer, that it would burn in the autumn. I was not there, but I remember. I remember a young man in a side room, choosing the harder road with the sign still hanging in the air. I remember a judge on a balcony and a tribe walking home. I remember a cup of water with blood in it and a laugh. I remember a name whispered off a rooftop toward Karbala into the wind. And I remain behind the veils until the permission is given and the hearts are ready and the 313 have gathered at the threshold. Until then, sleep with the taper still lit. Remember the ambassador. Remember that the witness does not need the city to keep its word. The witness needs only to keep his own. And remember that there is a hand the believer will not raise, even to win. Tomorrow night we hear of another man, the commander of the enemy, who closed his door first and then opened it. Tonight, sleep. Where is your brother? Where is your brother?
اللهم صل على محمد
آل
وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
And so now we have the supplication. Peace be upon Abel, who testified first. Peace be upon the prophets who carried the covenant and wept. Peace be upon Shaykh Mutahari, who gave us the theology of the gift. Peace be upon Dr. Shariati, who gave us the sociology of the demand. Peace be upon Husayn, who stood at Mina, spoke the truth, and then became the truth. Peace be upon Muslim, the ambassador who carried the yes into a city of broken promises. Peace be upon the Imam of our age, who watches and remembers and waits. Peace be upon you all, and upon your houses, and upon the choice you will make between tonight and tomorrow, the choice between the Shahada of the tongue and the Shahada of life. O God, you who sent Husayn to Mina before you sent him to Karbala, you who gave the diagnosis before you prescribed the treatment, you who told the scholars what they owed before they had the chance to claim what they did not know, we turn to you tonight on this fourth night of Muharram, and we have no Lord except you, and no refuge but at your door, no teacher but the ones you have sent to teach us. O God, we send our condolences and our congratulations tonight to your beloved Prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him, his family, and his righteous companions. Condolences for a grandson who stood at Mina and spoke to men who should have already been standing where he stood, who rebuked the scholars, not because he enjoyed the rebuke, but because someone had to say what they refused to say. And congratulations for a grandson who, when the scholars would not act, did not sit down. He walked. He said yes. And the yes he said has echoed in every century since, and we are still hearing it tonight. O God, we send our peace to Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, the one who diagnosed the disease at Mina and named the three silences before anyone gave them a name, who told the scholars to their faces that they had purchased their safety with flattery and compromise, and who, when the medicine he prescribed was refused, became the medicine himself. He did not wait for the scholars to agree. He did not wait for the consensus to form. He walked out of Mecca with 72 souls and a covenant that would not bend, and the world has not been the same since. O God, we send our peace to Dr. Ali Shariati. May you, O our Lord, rest his pure soul, who found the same disease 14 centuries later in the lecture halls of Paris and the mosques of Tehran, who loved the tradition enough to criticize what had been done to it, and who asked the question, what should be done, and answered it with his life. He died in exile, far from the revolution he had helped to imagine. But the question he asked has outlived every regime that tried to silence it, and we are asking it tonight. O God, we send our peace to Shaheed Ayatollah Murtada Mutahari. May you, O our Lord, rest his pure soul. The teacher who saw the same illness from the seminary, who gave the theology of the candle and the taxonomy of the 5 deaths, and who was killed for the clarity he brought to a community that preferred its grief unexamined. His candle was extinguished on a Tehran street. His light is brighter now than it was the day he was killed. We see by it tonight. O God, we send our peace to Muslim ibn Aqil. Peace and blessings be upon him, the ambassador, the first yes of the caravan, who walked into Kufa with the covenant in his hands and found 18,000 promises that broke before the morning. We heard his story tonight in the Maqtal. He was the first to learn what the Shahada of the life costs when the city chooses the Shahada of the tongue. And he held the covenant until the covenant took his life. O God, we send our peace to Husayni ibn Aqil, peace and blessings be upon him, who opened one door and that stayed open when every other door in Kufa had closed, and who paid for that hospitality with his life. May every door that opens for the truth in this world be remembered as the door of Husayni. O God, we send our peace to the scholar martyrs who continued the yes in their own centuries. Shaheed Ayatollah Muhammad Beheshti, Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and Sayyida Bint al-Huda, who said yes in classrooms, in courtrooms, in prisons, when every voice around them was saying nothing. O God, we send our peace to the commanders of the caravan, Haj Qasim, Haj Ahmad, Haj Abu Mahdi, Sayyid Hassan, Sayyid Abbas, Shaykh Raghib. May you, O our beloved Lord, rest all of their pure souls. Those who said yes on frontiers, the pragmatists told them to abandon. who carried the Shahada of the life into the deserts and the mountain passes, and cities where the three silences held every other tongue. O God, we send our peace to the martyr Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei. May you rest his pure soul, who carried the yes for years and never changed, who stood where the scholars at Mina should have stood, at the pulpit before the powers with the covenant in his throat and spoke, who was the Shahada of the life in a century that preferred the Shahada of the tongue, and who joined the chain of his forefather Imam Husayn in the language of February, in the rooms of an empire that had written its own version of Muawiyah's letter and had received the same answer. O God, we send our peace to the Imam of the age. May our souls be his ransom, and may you, O our beloved Lord, hasten his return, who carries every witness, who remembers every silence, who knows the three reasons better than any teacher, because he watches them play out in every city, in every century, in every community that says nothing when the covenant requires a yes. And may the mercy of God be distant, a long, eternal, unappealable distant, from every scholar who has ever stood at a Mina of their own century and said nothing. Upon every preacher who has narrowed the covenant to the width of his own comfort. Upon every leader who has purchased safety with flattery and compromise and called it wisdom. Upon every city that has pledged its loyalty and then closed its doors. From Kufa to every capital that has, in our own time, promised justice and delivered silence. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to God, and to him do we return. And we repeat your promise, an eternal promise for justice and a warning for the wrongdoers. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. And the wrongdoers will soon know at what goal they will end up. And we add, from the depths of everything that we have learned tonight, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. God is sufficient for us, and he is the best of guardians. Amen, O Lord, sustainer of the universes. Amen, O most merciful of the merciful. Wa akhiru da'wani alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We now come to Nohe. A Nohe is an elegy, morning poetry sung and recited for Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, and the fallen of Karbala. This is the part of the night that belongs to all of us, so please join in voice and in the beating of the chest. Tonight's Nohe is Husayni Mawlaya.
There is no life without Hussein. We'll never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. Rejoice in his name and his sacrifice. Live in his way to see paradise. Journey to his land where he stood alone. This is the soil that our hearts call home. There is no life without Hussein. We'll never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. Defeated the Yazid of our modern age. Martyrs have written another page. Still flags that fly on the dome of peace. Now is the age of no defeat. There is no life without Hussein. We'll never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. Murderous Daesh in Syria, Takfiri sons of Muawiyah, enslavers of Zainab returned in spite. The righteous and pure they desired to fight. The lovers of Husayn, they arose with might, martyred like Abbas, yet won the fight. Takfiris forgot the words of Husayn will never be bowed in this earth again. There is no life without Husayn, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn. Look at the land of Afghanistan, invaded by tyrants again and again. The road to Kabul, it is washed in their blood, running like rats from a righteous flood. The great Satan, its future in jeopardy. Its influence soon will be memories to heroes they murdered with no remorse. Warned they have been of a certain course. We will not forget and we won't forgive. Our martyrs will rise, surely they do live. Our battle cry echoes through struggle and pain. We'll never be bowed on this earth again. There is no life without Husayn, we'll never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn. Our tears are like blood for the land of Bahrain. The sweetest and purest are brutally slain. Our hearts, they are broken, our love is so deep. The world utters nothing, its conscience asleep. The prisons are filled with the lovers of truth. Many in exile, they've martyred their youth. Husayn's very blood, how it runs in their veins. But victory will come and dignity reign. The hands of believers must join in their fight. Our brothers and sisters, so painful the plight, that foul suffocation must never remain. Hayhat min al-Billah, always their refrain. There is no life without Husayn, we'll never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn. Surrounded the enemy from all sides, surely they implement genocide. Yet brothers and sisters of Palestine soon will no longer be occupied. Murderous slaughter of woman and child, delusional fakers, chosen one lies. Never the children of blessed Ibrahim, rapists and pedophiles live on our screens. But now all the air's filled with angels and jinn, paving the way to end Zionist sin. The sword of the Savior, drenched in their blood, over and over, flood after flood. There is no life without Husayn, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn. Zionist footprints in Lebanon, missiles destruction they fall upon. Women and children, the fertile soil, life, love and freedom they tried to spoil. But for the flag of Muqawama and for the passion of Ashura, rattling bullets ring out. Husayn will never be bowed on this earth again. There is no life without Husayn, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Husayn. There is no life without Hussein will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. A place it is vacant, a candle expired, 85 tons and a new rage is fired. The furnace of hell, it will spread through the land. The reign of the Savior is nearer to hand. The flag boldly waved cries Ya Nasrallah. The hope in our hearts to avenge Ashura. Our ears shall not hear, but our eyes they shall see the truth of his promise, his sweet victory. There is no life without Hussein, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. Witness the resting place of Sajjad, eyes filled with tears, our hearts are so sad. No adoration for Fatima, no love or respect for Rasulullah. Yet I see a future of golden domes, peace, love and justice within our homes. I see the return of our blessed Imam. Labbaika ya Sahib al-Zaman. Witness the resting place of Sajjad, eyes filled with tears, our hearts are so sad. No adoration for Fatima, no love or respect for Rasulullah. Yet I see a future of golden domes, peace, love and justice within our homes. I see the return of our blessed Imam. Labbaika ya Sahib al-Zaman. There is no life without Hussein, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. There is no life without Hussein, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. There is no life without Hussein, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein. There is no life without Hussein, will never be bowed on this earth again. Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein, Husayni Mawlaya, Ya Hussein.
And now, Ziyarat Ashura. A ziyarah is a visitation, a way of standing in the Imam's presence across every distance, to greet him and to bind ourselves to him once more. Ziyarat Ashura, preserved from the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, is the salutation of the day of Ashura, honor for the martyrs, and disavowal of the tyrants. You will hear it now in our poetic English rendering, faithful in every meaning. And the tyrants it disavows are not one group's rivals, but the very lineage of oppression. Cain, Nimrod, Pharaoh, and Yazid, the fifth amongst them. And should you wish to understand it more fully, its origin and the figures it names, we have placed a short guide on our website, the link in the description. Please receive it with reverence.
Peace be upon you, O Aba Abdullah. Peace be upon you, O son of the messenger of God. Peace be upon you, O chosen of God and son of his chosen. Peace be upon you, O son of the commander of the faithful. Peace be upon you, O son of Fatima, mistress of the women of all the worlds. Peace be upon you, O blood whose claim is God's, and son of that same claim, the solitary one, his due not yet redeemed. Peace be upon you, and upon the souls that came to rest about you. Upon you all. From us be the peace of God. For as long as we remain, and as long as night and day endure. O Aba Abdullah, immense is the calamity and bitter. Great is the wound of your loss upon us and upon all the people of Islam. Great and grievous is your affliction in the heavens upon all who dwell there. May the mercy of God be distant from a people who laid the first foundation of injustice and tyranny against you, O people of the house. May the mercy of God be distant from a people who drove you from your station and tore you from the ranks in which God himself had placed you. May the mercy of God be distant from a people who killed you, and from those who smoothed their road and gave into their hands the power to make war upon you. We disown them before God and before you, them and their partisans, their followers, their friends. We are at peace with all who are at peace with you, and at war with all who war against you, until the day of resurrection. May the mercy of God be distant from the house of Ziyad and the house of Marwan, from the clan of Umayyah, every one of them, from the son of Marjana, from Umar, son of Saad, from Shimr, and from a people who saddled their horses and bridled them and masked their faces to make war upon you. By our fathers and our mothers, for you, we would give them. Great is our grief for you, and so we ask of God, who ennobled your station and honored us through you, that he grant us to seek the requital of your blood at the side of an Imam divinely aided, from the household of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family. Make us, in your sight, honored through Husayn. Peace be upon him, in this world and the next. We draw near to God and to his messenger and to the commander of the faithful and to Fatima and to Hassan and to you through our love and loyalty to you, and through our disavowal of the one who fought you and raised against you the standard of war, and of the one who laid the first foundation of injustice and built his house upon it. We disown them before God and before you. So we ask of God, who honored us with knowing you and knowing those who love you, that He place us with you in this world and the next, that He set firm for us in your presence a footing of truth, that He bring us to the praised station that is yours with God, and that He grant us to seek our requital at the side of a guiding Imam, manifest and speaking with the truth from among you.
O God, make our living the living of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and our dying the dying of Muhammad
and the family of Muhammad. O God, this is a day on which the clan of Umayyah rejoiced and counted itself blessed, and the son of the devourer of livers, the one cast far from mercy, son of the one cast far from mercy, upon your tongue, and the tongue of your prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, in every place where your prophet stood.
O God,
let your mercy be far from Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah, and Yazid son of Muawiyah, upon them from you, be that exile from mercy, for all the ages without end. This is a day on which the house of Ziyad and the house of Marwan rejoiced at their killing of Husayn. God's blessings be upon him.
O God,
multiply upon them the distance of your mercy and your punishment. O God, let your mercy be distant from the first who wronged the right of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and from the last who followed him upon that road.
O God,
let your mercy be distant from the band who fought against Husayn and sided with his killing and pledged to it and followed in it.
O God,
let your mercy be distant from them, all of them. Peace be upon you, O Aba Abdullah, and upon the souls that came to rest about you. Upon you from us be the peace of God, for as long as we remain, and as long as night and day endure. And may God never make this the last of our covenant with you, the last of our coming to you. Peace be upon Husayn, and upon Ali son of Husayn, and upon the children of Husayn, and upon the companions of Husayn. O God, single out the first oppressor for the distance of your mercy from us. Begin with him first of all, then the second, the third, the fourth. O God, let your mercy be distant from Yazid the fifth, and from Ubaidullah son of Ziyad, and the son of Marjana, and Umar son of Saud, and Shimr, and the house of Abu Sufyan, and the house of Ziyad, and the house of Marwan, until the day of resurrection. O God, to you belongs all praise, the praise of those who give thanks to you even in their affliction. All praise is God's, for the immensity of our sorrow.
O God,
grant us the intercession of Husayn on the day we come before you, and set firm for us a footing of truth in your presence with Husayn and the companions of Husayn, those who poured out their very lifeblood for Husayn, peace be upon him.
so the fourth night comes to its close. Thank you for coming and for the depth of attention you have brought. And before we pray, do consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this premiere. Every share is a small act of Amr bil Ma'ruf, carrying this witness outward. May God accept us, make our witness a witness of the whole life and not the tongue alone, and keep us among His truthful servants. And may He protect and strengthen our Wali al-Faqih, Imam Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei. May God protect him until the appointed hour. If every day is Ashura, then every day the question stands before us. We will not put it down. Where is your brother? Good night, and may God keep you.